There's no proposal at this time to close embassies or consulates. That's been media reporting because people like to leak lies, but there's no such work.
So that's not happening?
None are proposed, and I think I would know.
Know about it? Well, okay. Well, let's check that out and see where that information is coming from. That's what you're committing to me?
Well, we're going to comply with the statutory requirements, but we
Okay,
also
well,
have to be
that's
more
good.
careful about who we let into this country.
Well, I didn't say that. I know we have to be careful, but I'm just saying we need to continue with that effort. You voted for it. Mr. Mass voted for it, but I don't see any progress on it. I hear just the opposite.
No, consular affairs may actually even be expanded. And in fact, we are looking for ways to do double shifts in some of our embassies around the world because of the visa requirements. For example, if you haven't applied for a visa from Colombia already, you probably won't get here in time for the World Cup unless we go to double shifts. So we've even talked about reassigning foreign service officers, many of who are trained earlier in their career in consular services, to provide 24-hour presence in some of our embassies and consulates around the world just to handle the visa load for things like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then the Olympics 2 years behind it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You know, I keep hearing you say your job is to carry out the mission of the executive branch and the agenda of the president. It's kind of hard to figure out what the president's foreign policy is. It jumps around from Gaza being a resort area to we're going to help Ukraine or we're not, or we're going to have tariffs on China or we're not, we're meddling in the Romanian election. I don't know how you figure out what the agenda is. Also, you say you want to make the State Department stronger, but everything we've seen coming from y'all is that you're dead set on kind of killing it or at least undermining American interests. I think you proposed an 84% budget cut, plans for widespread diplomatic closures, laying off staff across the board. I don't see how any of those things really makes us stronger and delivers for the American people. Now, I believe that jeopardizes our national security, but I want to ask you something a little more arcane, a little more specific to my district that has to do with some economic investments, and that's about tourism. You know, we've been working very hard to improve the visa services over the last few years. Seems to me what you're doing is going to undercut that and move us backwards. We're already seeing this as a problem in Las Vegas where tourists are down by 8% just in a few short months. And this problem's going to become more acute as we look to host the Olympics and we host the World Cup. So could I just ask you, are you planning to cut the Consular Affairs Bureau that does the visas by 15% like we're hearing?
No, consular affairs may actually even be expanded. And in fact, we are looking for ways to do double shifts in some of our embassies around the world because of the visa requirements. For example, if you haven't applied for a visa from Colombia already, you probably won't get here in time for the World Cup unless we go to double shifts. So we've even talked about reassigning foreign service officers, many of who are trained earlier in their career in consular services, to provide 24-hour presence in some of our embassies and consulates around the world just to handle the visa load for things like the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then the Olympics 2 years behind it. And in fact, go ahead.
How are you going to do that with an 84% budget cut?
There's no 84%, but I think you're referring to USAID when it comes to the State Department.
I know that's part of it, but just
yeah,
generally.
But when it comes to the State Department, our consular services are actually intend on ramping up efforts because of the reasons that I've just outlined below, because of the reasons I just outlined earlier. And we recognize that as a top priority. We want it to be a success. It's a priority for the president. And I think there are good numbers because it's the same division that handles it. We are setting records in the numbers of passports that are being processed. Same group of people, so it shows that our systems are improving. And finally, we're looking at ways to infusing technology and AI to even further and rapidly increase that process even further, particularly for people, people who have had visas in the past, so we're just restoring visas. We can move even much quicker on many of those.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, but I want to look and see what you do, not just what you say, because when you talk about cutting budgets, talk about cutting personnel, talk about closing embassies and consulates, I don't know how you can increase the visa process or make it quicker.
There's no proposal at this time to close embassies or consulates. That's been media reporting because people like to leak lies, but there's no such work.
So that's not happening?
None are proposed, and I think I would know.
Know about it? Well, okay, well, let's check that out and see where that information is coming from. If I could switch just a little bit to Afghanistan, you've heard a little bit about that. I introduced legislation to authorize the CARE Act, the Coordination for Afghan Relocation Efforts. You voted for that, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Mass voted for that. We called for this to be created and have an appointment made. I wonder, can you tell us what's happening with that to help us serve these Afghan refugees? Or are you wearing that hat too, or is there somebody else that you're going to appoint to that position?
Well, primarily the DHS responsibility for the intake of people into our country. I can certainly take that back and give you information on what progress they've made in that regard. But I will also tell you that one of the things we're tackling right now is we have to be able to properly vet anyone who comes into this country, given the mass migration events we've confronted over the last 3 years.
I suspect these people are vetted as much or more than just about anybody else coming into the country as refugees.
Well, some of them, they include dependents, and in many cases, a higher level of vetting is necessary because they're coming from countries where we don't have a lot of information. Not every country keeps, including Afghanistan, has perfect records. Some of them, we know them because they've worked with us in the past. Others, we just have limited information on them.
So, but we are going to continue with this Afghan relocation efforts and this office, this CARE office. That's what you're committing to me?
Well, we're going to comply with the statutory requirements, but we
Okay,
also
well,
have to be
that's
more
good.
careful about who we let into this country.
Well, I didn't say that. I know we have to be careful, but I'm just saying we need to continue with that effort. You voted for it. Mr. Mass voted for it, but I don't see any progress on it. I hear just the opposite. So I appreciate that commitment. Thank you, and I yield back.
Chair now recognizes Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Mast, for holding this crucial hearing and allowing Secretary Rubio to highlight the overwhelming successes accomplished so far in the Trump administration. Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here today and for the incredible work that you and the department are doing. We're really proud of it. Thank you. I want to echo your opening statement. America is back. From bringing home hostages held in Gaza, initiating a peace agreement between the DRC and Rwanda, countering China's influence around the world, and much, much more, we are back. Thanks to the great work of President Trump and your great leadership, the United States is restoring its place on the world stage. No longer will the United States refuse to engage in foreign policy and diplomacy, but rather we will lead with peace through strength. I've traveled a lot recently via my various committees, including this one, throughout the continent of Africa. And one thing I've seen is that we've really neglected Africa. We have spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money there, in my mind, with no strategic thought whatsoever into how we're spending this money. I have a question for you regarding South Africa. South Africa has withdrawn from America and our allies in recent years while increasing diplomatic relationships with our foreign adversaries, deepening cooperation with China, attacking our greatest ally, Israel, at the International Court of Justice, downgrading Taiwan's diplomatic presence, and condoning violence and race-based persecution against minorities. I fully support President Trump's executive order to bolster the administration's efforts in combating the egregious actions taken by South Africa. To support the administration's efforts, I recently introduced the U.S.-South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act, which would conduct a full review of our relationship with the Republic of South Africa and allow for the use of targeted sanctions against corrupt officials in the African National Congress. Secretary Rubio, have you seen South Africa align with our adversaries like China, Iran, and Russia, and do you believe a full review of our bilateral relationship would be beneficial in the U.S.'s posture and strategy toward this country?
Yes, on your first two questions, and an interesting topic, and maybe even as we speak, the President is actually meeting with the President of South Africa, who requested that meeting, and it will be happening today. Obviously, I'm here with you today, otherwise I would be at that. So I imagine these topics will be raised there as well.